One. All right, we're live. It's May 30th. It's a Friday. It's beautiful. We're in Tampa Bay, which has got a lot of stuff going on. And one of the key reasons we're here is because today, Buddy Brew, which is where we are, Buddy Brew Coffee, I got my bag sitting right here, of Ethiopian, which is really phenomenal. But Buddy Brew is reopening. They've expanded. And what we've found, and we've got Joy Redner from Cigar City, he's going to be talking, but Dave Ward and his wife, Susan. What we found is that coffee shops are a great place for people, obviously, to come, collect, get together. And this coffee shop in particular has been really successful at bringing a really eclectic group of people together who are interested in a whole lot of things, but many of them are here for technology, and seeing a new type of Tampa Bay. And so what we're going to be talking with is some incredible minds. The brightest minds in all of tech are sitting right at this table, and we're going to talk about technology. But I wanted to have Paul Trudeau from the Tampa Bay Times and Mr. Wilkinson from the Tampa Bay Business Journal kind of tell us from your perspective, because you cover this. You guys are like you're sleuthing into what's going on in our community in tech. Can you, we're going to start with Paul, kind of tell us, or Bob, from your perspective, what you see going on in technology here in Tampa Bay.
I mean, I've been here long enough, more than 20 years, to get at least some feel of the movement of entrepreneurial startups and that type of mindset moving into this area at a serious pace. You know, way back in the 90s, there was a gathering of people who met up on Olmerton Road, and they were exploring the idea of trying to brand this area, and they wanted to call it Silicon on the Bay. And we've come a long, long way from that time, and a lot of the reason that we have are embodied in many of the people that we're going to be talking to today. We have seen an infrastructure of technology and supporting entrepreneurial efforts in that area take hold here. It ranges from the Tampa Bay Technology Forum, which has been the advocacy group for this area for a long time, but it also is reflected in a number of business incubators that are both in Tampa at USF, at University of Tampa, up in Pasco, over in Pinellas, downtown St. Petersburg is getting into the game, and all of those are going to slowly start talking more to each other in a coordinated fashion. I think that's going to be a big topic today.
Thanks, Bob. Chris.
Thanks for having me, Commissioner Sharp. I've not been here nearly as long as Bob has, and so he's seen sort of this evolution come along for quite a while, and I'm coming in a little bit more a little bit more blind. But I will say that in the couple of years that I've been watching this community, what I see is them asking the exact right questions, and I see them trying to solve the exact right problems. It's not the technology community here faces the same issues that a lot of communities face that are not Silicon Valley or that are not Austin, Texas, in that we've got a core group of people that are doing great work, and we want to build on that. And there are a lot of communities that are asking that same question. The Atlantas and the Charlottes and the Lexingtons and all. There are a lot of communities that are asking the same questions and wanting to be that same next big tech city that we kind of do. So what I see is people asking the right questions and asking smart questions and getting together in smart groups and doing things like Ignite Tampa Bay that was last week that was really sharp. And so that's what I see is a technology community that's being smart about how it wants to grow and what it wants to be as it grows up in Tampa Bay.
Okay, well, but when we talk about comparing ourselves, and I do that often, I look at the comparison sheet, and you know, obviously we're not a San Francisco right now or a Boston, but when you look at the other tiered communities, the Denvers, the Seattles, that always are in the top 20. Robert, again, do you think that we have an opportunity to make a move on those communities?
I think we're a ways off from comparing ourselves to some of the very well-established tech communities around. I mean, I think we're making progress. I think it's going to be a big challenge to see if we can sustain the pace, if we can gain ground on other communities, metropolitan areas that have similar goals. I think a big issue for Florida is venture capital and the source of funding to help support a lot of the good ideas that entrepreneurs have here. On the other hand, there does seem to be clear momentum in this area for both young people and serial entrepreneurs to start recognizing that there is a community here, and that's very important for them for both support. And I think we're starting to see at least some signs of more money becoming available, or at least exploring this area.
Did you want to make a point, Chris?
Well, and comparison is a tricky gig, just like Bob said. There's certainly some communities that we're doing a lot better than, and some that we have a lot to catch up with. But I always remind people that we've got 45 plus years of the message from this state to the nation as a whole being, come visit the mouse,
right,
come to the beach. And so much money has been spent by this state to tell people that that's what Florida is about, that it's going to take a lot to overcome that national image of Florida and of Tampa Bay as being a destination for vacations and for chilling out. To equal that marketing campaign is basically impossible. You'd have to find a separate way to get that message out, that image out of Tampa Bay being a technology core.
When I first ran for Congress back in '92, I sat down with the local chamber folks and talked about what was the economic program for Tampa Bay and what was where do we see ourselves going, and it was all about Disney. It was about the beach. They mentioned MacDill, in passing, but really it was about what a great place to come live and retire. And and I was a lot younger then, and my attitude was I'm not interested in retiring. I want a cool place to live. All right, we got. And you are the ones that are going to be asking these guys the questions, but we got an amazing group lined up here right now, and we're going to start with Mr. Gordon, George Gordon, who's done he's a serial entrepreneur, owned and purchased and sold a lot of companies, done some great things in our community. You're with Florida Next. George, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and Florida Next, or Next Florida, what it does, and what your purpose is?
Sure. Florida Next is a charitable foundation founded by Alex Sink after she lost the governor's election a few years ago, and her goal was to, at the time, was to try and leave Florida a better place for the next generation than we left it to them. So, or than we've created for them. So. We've kind of refined that strategy now to say, really, we want to inspire a state of innovation here. The statistics for building a technology economy are very, very powerful. Technology companies as startups are outnumbering all others over 20 to 1. Technology workers make 30 to 50% more. Startups create 40% of all new jobs, so you could say tech startups are creating about 35% of all new jobs. It's pretty compelling. That's what we ought to focus on. Those numbers are not secret. Other regions have found them, like you were saying, Chris. Obscure communities like Chattanooga and Tulsa, Oklahoma, and things of that nature. So what we're trying to do is get all of the players that are in our region who are in the technology game, and they've grown over the years, to focus on the fence post of what we want this economy to look like in 10, 20 years. And let's agree on what that looks like. And I think we need to have a lot of technology companies employing a lot of people. And in order for that to happen, we need to grow some companies. And the days of the great buffalo hunt and getting Apple to move to Tampa Bay are gone. So let's figure out how to grow our own and build a regional technology strategy to get there.
That's cool. Guys, do you want to ask him a question before we go to our next guy? Well, let me ask you. You're Navy grad. You went to Silicon Valley.
Yes.
What brought you to Tampa?
Well, after the tech wreck in year 2000, the things got kind of slow in the valley for a few years. I was actually recruited to come here to run a company called Emporion, which was a business-to-business internet trading exchange founded by utility companies. I was fortunate enough to be able to acquire that business from them in 2009 and sold it in 2011. So since then, I've just been trying to work with and help early stage companies become later stage and bigger companies.
Chase Stockton with Panther. How long have you been in Tampa, Chase?
20 years.
What brought you to Tampa?
I'm actually a Chamber of Commerce story. I chose Tampa. Was living in D.C., was working as a lobbyist for transportation up there. Had sort of a tech edge to it, and looked around the country and tried to figure out where the best place to start a business was going to be, and it was based on lifestyle. It was based on a whole bunch of factors. It's a national business, so it can really be anywhere. And truly looked at the smallest big city or the biggest small city we could find. Major league sports, Broadway level performing arts, all the culture pieces that a big city has without all the big city headaches. So came here, started the business 20 years ago this year.
So you actually chose Tampa Bay. You had an opportunity. I was listening to Lee Evans, who was with Bristol Myers Squibb, and he was talking about the selection process for their company and how and why they chose Tampa. And it was fascinating because it wasn't like they just threw a dart. I mean, they really set up, they did a lot of analysis and picked Tampa. You picked Tampa as a place you wanted to live.
Picked it and did, a similar analysis to what we're talking about. Denver, San Diego, sort of that whole set of tier that we, compete against. And in the end, chose Tampa.
Now, both of you have chaired the Tampa Bay Tech Forum, correct? You're chairing it now.
I am.
Okay, we got Florida Next. We got the Tech Forum. What is it that the Tech Forum is doing? And I know there's some changes that are good. That you're. In fact, I was at your retreat yesterday. It's really exciting. Everybody's pumped up. Really wants to do a lot to make tech, more relevant to our community. But what's the mission of the Tech Forum?
It's really to represent the tech industry as a voice, and one of the things that has come out of all of what we're doing, and that's that we support Florida Next vision, that we all have different swim lanes. When TBTF was formed 12, 13 years ago, it was really sort of the only voice guys like us had in town. There wasn't the Wave, there wasn't the Innovation Center, there wasn't meetup groups, there wasn't Buddy Brew, there wasn't any of this going on, and so it really started as the voice for technology in the area, and it's evolved to represent not just those tech companies, but now the tech portions of all companies. So, our biggest members are American Express, Raymond James, WellCare, Publix, everybody who has large IT shops. So our mission has changed a little bit and evolved to really represent the management teams that represent all of those tech workers in town. So our big issue is obviously workforce, huge. How do we build that workforce? How to retain that workforce? So that's that, we're really focused on the rising tide. We can't do much to, affect a single entity like a Raymond James, that kind of thing, the way an EDC or somebody like that can, but we can sure support all the other organizations and build that, environment here. That momentum and collaboration that you're feeling, that's our job. Our job is to build that, support it, and sustain that so that everybody can hire and retain better workers.
Fritz, and you guys, again, this is wide open. You guys can jump in, but when we were talking about tech companies, and a year ago, sitting here talking about what we can do to bring companies here, one of the questions was, well, do we have the talent to fill the space of the companies? And I was concerned that we didn't. And I think you were here saying we do have the talent. It's just that they get on a plane and they go work for another company somewhere else and then come back like at the end of the week.
On Friday.
But there weren't enough companies to maybe keep everybody here. So let's first off with talent. Do we have the talent, Fritz?
Oh, there's tremendous amount of talent across the region, and honestly, we fight the same struggles that every community fights. You talk San Francisco, you talk Silicon Valley, Charlotte. They're all clamoring and fighting for talent. Thanks to the internet, what happens, a lot of the talent that lives here, they're being recruited by those companies. They're paying higher rates. So there's talent here, high-end talent, that local companies are not going to access because they're not paying this type of rates. A friend of mine moved to Pittsburgh, part of a global software company, uses me to find them some folks, and I place them some of the best .NET developers in this market, and they're all earning about $20,000 to $30,000 more than what they'd get at local companies. So, is there talent? Yes. Are they traveling? Sure, especially now with, the last 3.5 years, honestly, has been such an insane amount of hiring. You look at phones, you look at your tablets, you look at everyone wants better banking. I want to do it online, I want to do it 24/7. I want to watch HSN while I'm communicating with someone else and buying something at the same time and then texting it to my mother so I can share that experience. Well, who's doing all of that? So you need the developers to create that, all those products. You need the technical people to support it so that it's working real time. So when you order something, you know it's there. So.
Okay, well, all right, let me ask you this. When I went to, in fact, tomorrow is the National Day of Hacking, which is a good thing. It sounds like it's not a good thing. I try to explain that's good, and the people involved in hacking are amazing. The county's involved. We have a hackathon that we're sponsoring at ITT, which is going to be amazing.
Sure.
When I went to USF's hackathon about a year ago and talked to the students who were all deep into coding, and I said, this is amazing, and they showed me what they were doing. I said, how much of this did you learn from the university? No slap on the university. They're like, we picked this up ourselves.
Yeah.
We're studying,
Sure.
computer science, computer engineering, and design and such, but we've learned a lot of it ourselves. Are there other places where they're doing a better job of training their talent so that they have that bigger pool, or is everybody basically doing the same thing?
Look, I think it still fundamentally goes to communications. I think you guys would agree. We're trying to get the TBTF, and yet we're still trying to reach companies that never heard of it. Don't think of it as a real group that can make an impact. So it's you look at 15 years ago, you had nothing. 15 years later, you've got an explosion of groups, organizations, co-working, technology, more user groups than you can think of. You can only imagine in 15 years, really what you'll start needing is organization or something to corral all that energy and make sure that the kids know, make sure that the professors know what they should be communicating to the students so that they're active in the business. There's lots going on. Just unfortunately, it's still under the radar despite all the years and efforts put into it.
George is right that the likelihood of catching a buffalo and convincing a tech giant to move from California over to here is pretty slim. And I think that, as an observer, the Technology Forum, in part is sort of working to build the infrastructure that will help create, build Buffalo here, kind of organically, because the likelihood of Britain, and sometimes when we get a big economic development win, and we'll talk to Mark later on this morning, but sometimes when we get a big economic development win, like Bristol-Myers Squibb, which Bob wrote a great story about last week, and figure out exactly how they picked this one spot out of the whole country. The technology group that they bring might be this big, but as they grow, that technology group gets bigger and bigger. And then that talent pool that Fritz is talking about, it's growing inside of that organization, just like it grows inside of an organization like Citizen Investor that only has two guys here, So,
right.
So I think that's another part of kind of how that talent pool grows and how the Technology Forum, at some level, is trying to build the infrastructure that kind of supports that, so that those.
The other thing we talked about, startup entrepreneur, startup CEO. There's no greater time in the last few years. It's so easy to start up a company, do the marketing on Twitter, Facebook, email campaigns. It's probably the least expensive time to ever set up. If you were starting up a company in the 90s, you had to spend so much in Oracle, so much in EMC. There's no greater time to be an entrepreneur and start up a company. Put your passion into it, and hopefully there's a market there to make it a profitable business. Good point.
Yeah, technology's been the greatest force of change in the history of the planet, and the rate of change is incredibly fast. So the barriers to entry for a new business are very low capital requirements, as Fritz said, and the opportunities for those companies to go from the two-man shop of building an app to hundreds of millions of dollars in value. Look at Nest. Google paid $3.2 billion for the company, and
look
it was
at
not more
WhatsApp
than
for
a few
$19
years
billion.
old. I'm sorry?
WhatsApp for $19 billion.
My wife's going to Europe,
that's amazing.
And we were talking about the cost of communicating back and forth, and she said to me, have you heard of this new app we're going to use? It's WhatsApp. I'm like, of course I've heard of it. It's a $19 billion app. They just got acquired for $19 billion.
Right.
And so you were talking about, our focus has been in the old days, and we still do want companies to come here. And we're out there looking for large companies to get them to come. But we're also recognizing that it's not like it's going to happen every day, but you can have that small shop that that goes unnoticed, that's right here, that just needs a little bit of help. It could explode into the next big thing.
And that's another reason why companies aren't finding the talent. Why, if I could start my own company and keep the full share of it, or work for you for a limited salary, limited wealth creation potential. So it's just an amazing time, really. Just can't wait to see what the next 5-10 years roll out in this community.
This is the big question, though. This is what I want to find out. Can Florida? You talked about the next Florida, where we're going to go. Can Florida, though, capture that, all that's going on, and make that who we are? I've seen, California's been able to do it, and they've got all their challenges. Colorado seems to be really successful. Utah has shown a lot of, growth. North Carolina, we seem, because it's always been like, well, we're kind of laid back, it's more the beach scene, flip-flops, sandals, relaxed, or come here to retire. Can Florida make that who we are? Can we be that state where we draw those companies and get those people to want to come here, live here, work here, and, really turn us into a place that young people don't just want to come here for beach week, they want to come here the entire year.
Well, we all want our kids to grow up and get good, high-paying jobs very close to home, so we can be close to them and close to our grandkids, right? The only way that's going to happen is if we build a technology economy. So the stakes are pretty high, and we ought to be working together as a team to make that happen. I think we can make it happen. If I didn't, I wouldn't be sitting here.
I would agree. I wouldn't be here either. I think we're on the way there now, and what happens to talk to the points that we've got is we bring in a Bristol Myers who has a small department. They begin to grow. If we can't find the talent, then we go outside and get that talent. That talent has friends. They talk about that. That's that momentum that I think we're seeing now. We didn't have the WellCares back then. We didn't have Raymond James, American Express with 500 Bloomin' brands. There's a restaurant chain. We all think of servers. We all think of all of that. They've got 160 tech people.
Wow.
So those are workers. That's this force. That's the people that are around that we're talking about. And they go find other jobs. They start their own business. They get recruited. They move. They do all of that. But if we can keep them here, everybody new's coming in.
And while this is an important conversation to be having, we keep talking about other states, the North Carolinas and the Californias. There are about 46 other states with a county commissioner sitting around a table with a bunch of dudes talking about having this same kind of conversation.
Not like Mark, though. Not
like Mark. Nobody's as special as Mark. But there's the competition is fierce because Vermont wants to be this, and so does Utah, and so does Nevada.
Yeah, like I said, I was traveling out in the Badlands a year or so ago with my family on vacation, looking at the Milken list, and Milken and Forbes came out at about the same time. Best place to start a business. They were ranking the communities and the MSAs by their, by the number of tech companies they had, and our rankings were lousy. And the response that I was getting back from some of the folks I was talking to, I thought was unsat. It was just kind of like, well, Forbes doesn't like us, or the ranking system really doesn't work real well, and I'm like, I don't care about any of those things. First off, I know we're doing a lot of stuff that they really haven't heard about, so some of this is just self-promotion. But the other part of it is, daggone it, whatever these other guys are doing to be in the top 10 and 20, we need to be doing. And that's been our focus. I'm going to close with something that I think is, because we got Joy Redner from Cigar City coming up, but what I think is really cool is that you recognize, Chase, that tech's everywhere. When I go to my mail and there's a value pack in my mailbox, and you open it up and there's a bunch of coupons, I'm thinking, well, how tech is that? But then when I was at an event that Startup Monkey was involved in, and Ken Evans was there, and they had all these, they had these guys that were wickedly smart doing this. They were working on applications and doing these presentations. I didn't understand a tenth of what they were saying, but they were all from Valpak. And they were talking about how, they were there on their own trying to learn new ways of designing applications that can be used for the work they're doing there.
The autonomous robots at Valpak are some of the leading robots around.
Yeah,
it's a sleepy little paper legacy company, but it really is one of the more tech
Okay,
companies.
I'm getting the roll. We're going to bring Joey Redner here. Guys, thank you very much. Fantastic. Hey, man, go Navy. I'm telling you, man, an Academy grad. I'll follow you anywhere. Thank you, George. Chase, thank you, sir. Fritz, thank you, sir. You guys get to stay.
Yay!
Joey. Beer.
Introduce Commissioner Merman real quick.
Oh, bring her over here.
Yeah, they're gonna.
We're still live, right?
Yeah, we're still live.
Hey, Merminator. Come over here. We're live. We're live.
I brought a You Make a Difference to Buddy Brew.
Oh! Hey, hold on. Let's bring that on. Come here. Come here.
We'll get
Just
going,
get
Mike.
on. Just introduce. Sit, you take the seat.
I-
Paul, stay.
No,
Oh,
I
Robert,
only take
Robert,
the
stay.
seat.
Robert.
You do it with me. Come
Keep
on.
calling him Paul. It's Robert. Go ahead.
I am giving a You Make a Difference to one of the best small businesses we have in South Tampa, Buddy Brew. Yes. And it says for the opening of the newly remodeled 2,000 square foot storefront in Tampa and the expansion of your business to include grow production for your wholesale roasting operation, Buddy Brew coffee beans. Coffee fans will now have a true coffee shop experience with the industrial chic decor and full view of the new roaster. Your commitment to serve excellence also brings dozens of small, valuable jobs and tremendous economic development to Hillsborough County. Helps make our county a great place to live, work, and play, and raise a family.
Wow.
That is
Cool.
wonderful. Thank
We
you
got
so
Dave and
much.
Susan.
Thank you.
Awesome.
You're on TV.
That's such a beautiful description. You encompassed it. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Now, Robert, and he's gonna think I don't even know who he is because I raced to the paper Sunday morning because I'm just like seriously, I go. Everyone fights for the paper. I go to the business section because I want to see what's going on, what you're writing about. But Robert asked, who is going to take the mantle when I get off the commission and grab the realm of business and entrepreneurship and tech startups. Sandy, I call it a Merminator.
Startups.
Sandy Merman has been a fierce advocate for startups, and I really think it's
Small
going to do
business.
and small business.
I got following his
That means a
footsteps.
lot to us. That's great.
So she'll have to have coffee here as well.
Oh, I
please
know.
do.
Well, we usually can't be together in the same room.
Sure.
And do it with Mark. Come on, we'll do one with Mark too. Come on.
Come on. All right,
Thank
cool.
you so much.
All right,
Great.
awesome. Okay, we're gonna go back. Let's get Joey.
I have my hurricane conference.
Oh.
And we got hackathon, but I didn't get any information. Are we supposed to show up Sunday?
I think it's Saturday, but where's Lindsay? Can you have, we got the All-Stars. All right, let's rock and roll. We're still going, right? Hey, we have not stopped. We're still rolling. I got my Buddy Brew coffee. But to balance it out, because I believe in balance, I need to have coffee and beer. They're the two important things in my life: water, coffee, beer, and a lot of running. We got a guy here. We talk about tech and about what folks look for when they want to come to a really cool community. It is true. You got to have. And there's a lot of great coffee shops here. Buddy Brew is one of them, but we got a lot of coffee shops that are exploding in Tampa Bay. And folks love to come. You can tell they want to come here. They want to be part of a cool scene. But I'll tell you what, I went to go fill my growler last Saturday. I think I want to say it was maybe right after noon, and the place was packed at Cigar City. I mean, there were more beer aficionados. I couldn't find a parking spot, and you got lots of parking, but you go inside, and what you find are a lot of young, energetic, engaged individuals who really are truly part of what we talk about, this new economy, but they enjoy good beer. And we got the maestro of brewing right here with Joy Redner. I am a huge fan. I can attest to it. You go to my refrigerator, you'll see a lot of High Life sitting right there, and it's fantastic. And so, Joey, first off, we're honored to have you here. You got two of the greatest reporters in all of Tampa Bay. We're going to ask you a few questions, but we just wanted to thank you for what you've done for our community, how you've kind of changed the mindset of collaboration, and really, I think also brought something that others want. I mean, with Hanapu, I know that, are you going to still brew Hanapu?
We're definitely, and thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
But we're definitely still going to brew it. I think the issue is anytime you sort of, you give the opportunity for profit at the price we sell it at. The market will bear more, and so there's a lot of opportunity to buy something for 20, sell it for 50 or more, and you bring out an element that maybe has motives other than just having a good time and enjoying the product for what it is. So we're still going to have the fest. We're still going to brew the beer. We'll probably just eliminate the bottle sales component of it to eliminate that opportunity for profit. I think that should make it more fun for everyone that does go.
What was so cool, though, when I went to Hanapu the first time, about 3 years ago, and I'm walking through. Now, normally, I can walk into a built room, and there's a lot of folks. I'll know people. I go to the grocery store, I know who's there. When I was walking through that event, and there were thousands of people, I didn't know any of them. And I started saying, who are you? Where are you from? I mean, literally, they're like, I'm from North Carolina. I'm here for this. I'm from, they flew in from California. They flew in from all over the country for this event. You were drawing people in.
Yeah, it's increasingly sort of beer tourism. It's kind of like in any, if you're traveling somewhere, you want to sort of get immersed in the local culture. And what's part of culture? I mean, obviously in Tampa, we have the Cuban sandwich. We have this unique culinary history, and if you're in New Orleans, you're probably going to want to have some Cajun food, but that next layer of that is definitely beer, and I know that when I travel and I'm in another city, even if it's a city where I sell my beer, I don't want my beer, I want to have what's local to that region, that area, and I think you increasingly you have a lot of people that they want to go get an experience. And we've been fortunate that that our products have been well received, and people are interested in coming and sort of taking place or taking part in the celebration that we do. That's Hanapu Day. We've been very fortunate there. But yeah, it's something that I think you're going to see an increase. I don't think you're going to see it slow down. I think you're going to see people traveling for events that are beer related, and maybe 10, 15 years ago that seemed odd, but it's becoming increasingly common.
I don't want to dominate we did a Buddy Brew at Cigar City a while back, and I'm just like a fawning fan. I'm sitting there, I want to talk hops and where you get your hops and the variant. I liked your experimental hop beer. That was fantastic. But what I found and what I like about what you're doing here for the tech community, if you go to Colorado and you look at their brochures on what they're trying to do to attract the tech community, grow the tech community, North Carolina, it's interesting that their economic development departments all talk about craft beer. We really couldn't do that. I mean, I don't want to dismiss the beer that's here, or that was here. I mean, I grew up as a boy. I was born and raised here. I went to Busch Gardens, and while my dad would drink his Busch beer, I would throw the pretzels at the Goldfish down below. That's all you had for entertainment when I was how long ago it was. But I mean, now you see that those states that really are attracting cool companies have cool, craft beer. But that's not why you started your beer company, or is it?
I think they're sort of part and parcel. I'm born and raised in Tampa as well. I'm a fifth-generation Floridian. But when I was looking at it economically, I did for a while consider starting my brewery in North Carolina.
Did you?
Yeah, just they have very favorable laws. But ultimately, I'm a Tampa guy, and I didn't want to move away from the city and the state that I grew up in. Ultimately, I decided to do it here. But I was looking to what I saw in other parts of the country and pining for it to be here. Yeah. And that's really what the motivation was to kind of have all of the breweries that I love from other places, from San Diego, from Austin, from Denver, from Portland, from Seattle, those breweries that were making things that I found really interesting, was to kind of bring that here. And since I couldn't make them open a brewery, it just ultimately led that I decided to do it myself.
Joe, you bring up favorable laws, and I'll say I used to live in North Carolina. There are very few industries that can say North Carolina has favorable laws. That's interesting you put it that way. But what do you think, having been through the legislative session a couple of times now, sort of looking at how it has worked as you've tried to get some slightly more favorable laws for the industry that you guys are in? What's your takeaway after this session on for another industry that might come in and want a law tweaked to make it easier for them to grow? What advice would you give them going into a legislative session?
You know, we're really neophytes when it comes to legislation as an industry. The Florida Brewers Guild, you know, we've been at this. This is our third year that we've just tried to get a simple growler law passed,
Right.
and you see the can of worms that it could potentially open. I think it really depends on what the industry is. You know, if you're trying to get something passed legislatively, I think the one thing that sort of saved us and kept us from maybe not having some negative laws get passed is that we do have a very engaged consumer. Our fan base is very loyal because they do remember the time when finding a beer that maybe you enjoyed in the style that you enjoyed was very difficult. And I turned 21 in Tampa, and there wasn't a lot out there. Yeah. and I think so. You have a fan base that's very engaged, and so we do have. While we don't have the money that some of the other people on the opposite side of the industry have, we do have very loyal fans, and they get excited, and they'll call their congressman.
It seemed like they were pretty hot on social media as well, following what was going on, sharing it with their friends, telling people to, call their constituents and all that, or their
But I would say to
lawmaker.
someone, if you're trying to get something passed legislatively, you got to talk to elected officials. I think that was one thing maybe we didn't do well enough in the beginning is just go see them and really try to get them to go see what you're doing.
Right.
You noted you could watch the vote. Senators that had breweries in their district that were able to go and see sort of not just what they were doing economically, but the people that came and who it attracted.
Right.
Those are the people that voted no for the legislation that would have.
So the ones here and the ones in Jacksonville.
Yeah, so Senator Letvala, who's got a few breweries in his backyard.
Right.
I forget the senator's name in South Florida who has Funky Buddha in his backyard.
Right.
The ones that can see it and interact with it and see the impact that it has on our community, the positive impact that it has, they were by and large against legislation that would have made that business model harder to run.
Right.
So
Very
I think
interesting.
if you're every industry is different, you're going to have different concerns, but get the elected officials to come see what you're doing first and foremost. Tell your story. We know in marketing that that's the best thing you can do for your product is tell the story of the product. Why are you making it? What's the purpose behind it? Why is it different or better?
Who's the consumer? Yeah.
Tell that story to your elected officials too. They need to know.
That's awesome.
Joey, I had a quick question for you. Beyond the current legislative issue with the growler matter and what have you, obviously craft brew is part of a cool culture, and it draws a lot of people at all levels and ages, but it's obviously very important to a younger community, increasingly so. What ingredient, so to speak, do you see missing in the Tampa Bay area? What could be added to this area that could really help sustain and grow this industry?
The biggest issue for me, I think, and especially again, when I opened the brewery, I was looking to other cities how they did things. I think, transportation is huge, but all levels of it. Not just that we don't have public transportation, but biking is incredibly difficult to do in this city and very dangerous. And I just think there's never been a focus there. You go to other cities and even cities that aren't classically public transportation cities like Denver. Obviously in New York you wouldn't necessarily need to have a car, but you can go to a place like Denver and between light rail, buses, and just education, understanding of sharing the road with people on bikes, you don't need to have a car in Denver. And that's a fairly spread out city, and even cities like San Diego that I think are more like Tampa, where it's a little bit more spread out. When you get more towards the core, you can have transportation options that come here today. Buddy Brew is an incredibly popular place, and I had to park
3
down
blocks
the
away.
block a bit.
And then risk your life.
Right, exactly. Whereas, if biking was a little bit more of an option, I personally am seldom traveling anywhere more than 3 or 4 miles. And bike is a really good option if it's safe. And currently, it's not very safe to bike in Tampa, and we don't have a lot of public transportation options. And I think you see that in cities, especially when a younger demographic, they're moving more away from cars. They're actually the lowest car ownership, in history at that age group. So I think public transportation is a big thing. Some of the other things that we used to not have, a culinary scene, a beer scene, a good bar scene, those things we're pretty rich in now. And fun things to do. Tampa always have that because there's so much outdoors that you can do. So I think we've closed the gap on a lot of things, but I think we're just still tragically behind on public transportation.
Yeah, well, good point. I mean, the silver lining in all of this is that it really has come a long way in a short period of time. But I'm hearing you on some of the shortcomings still to be fixed.
Every conversation I've had when I talk about making this more of a tech-oriented community, you see it shift to what Joey just talked about. Transportation, public transportation. The millennials that we're trying to attract, they use it, they know about it, they want to see it. And it all goes together, coffee, beer, public transportation, this type of a community where you can walk safely, ride your bike. I didn't even have to tell Joey to say this, and that was beautiful. I thought that was as eloquent as I've ever heard it stated. We're going to have to make sure we get that word out. But we just really thank you very much for what you've done for our community, the role that you're playing, the fact that you're out there. I mean, I go into his brewery, and he'll have other guys there who are telling me they're getting ready to start their own craft brewery somewhere else. And he's helping them, and and he says he's a businessman, but he's helping them.
Well, and this is very unusual, and one of our reporters worked with Joey on a story last summer about kind of how unusual it is as you're growing your own business to really be going to your competition at some level and helping them start their own, because it's just a slightly different industry than a hotel or something like that. And that Joey's found, and this is what he told us last summer, that by helping Florida Avenue start its tap room and helping the folks down in South Pinellas start their brewery, he's creating this culture where it really is so that there can be what you had wanted, kind of this whole list of breweries that you could come to if you came here as a tourist, and market it as a community that was very friendly to that industry.
It's a new economy. We're starting to tap into it, and I think that Joey, again, you're a big part of what's happening here. Keep brewing, stay here. We don't want you to leave. We want you to grow, and we want more of your followers to come. Thank you very much. I really, really appreciate you're taking the time to talk with us. It's fantastic. All righty. Are we live? We're going. We're still rolling. This is nonstop action. This is like excitement. Live. We got lots of coffee fanatics here. We're gonna in about 15 minutes. We're gonna do what politicians love to do. We're gonna cut a ribbon. We're gonna celebrate the reopening of Buddy Brew. I've got my bag of Ethiopian, which is phenomenal. It's got that berry, lemony, exotic flavor. You got to have this Ethiopian. We've been talking to some amazing people. And Robert Trudeau, Tampa Bay Times, sitting here, and Chris Wilkins is over there talking to some folks. But we're interviewing really folks and talking about Tampa Bay technology and how we're really changing the community. And Joey Redner from Cigar City was just here talking about all the things he's doing. But in order to be really successful, you got to have that talent base, that pool of folks that can come in and work in these companies. And we've got 3 people that are involved in one way or another. Rick Holman, who's with the president and CEO of the Economic Development Corporation, he's out there luring companies here and telling them, guys, we got great talent. We got Rebecca White from the University of Tampa, who is just phenomenal, off the charts, brilliant, exciting. She's got some of the most incredible students that are populating Tampa Bay. Her daughter just took over as the chairman and CEO of HealthBox. Maybe it's not chairman and CEO, but she's going to be helping to manage it. Program manager of HealthBox, which you're going to be hearing a lot about HealthBox, and I know that her boyfriend, they just graduated from college, he's here too, which is cool. We got young people who want to come to Tampa, which is phenomenal. And one of the reasons they want to come to Tampa is they want to meet Paul Sandberg. Yeah. Paul is like a dynamo, vice president of the University of South Florida, doing some amazing things in research and innovation. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to let you guys kind of tell us what you're doing here and how you're making Tampa a better place with the students we're attracting, the students we're training, and how you think we can really compete with the Seattles, the Denvers of the world. So I'll start with you, Paul. Why don't you just kind of introduce yourself, Dr. Sandberg, tell us who you are, what you're doing, and how you're making a difference.
Sure. Well, so I'm Paul Sandberg, and I've been at USF now for 22, 23 years, hard to believe, through the medicine side. And somehow, because of being dealing with entrepreneurship during my lifetime, I have taken on that role at USF as we've grown. And my ambition at USF really is to make sure that we're part of the community, that we're training students and young people and old people to make sure that we are getting them available for the workforce and coming up with new ideas. And that when they come up with new ideas, we're going to take those and we're going to make companies. We have a great student incubator, business incubator, that has just had its first group of students, 16 companies. We're going to take more in. We want them to really be doing well. We have a incubator, they're right by our regular incubator, the Tampa Bay Technology Incubator, which just got actually ranked in the top 25 globally of incubators, we just heard recently, which is great. And we're also trying to really push a change in the culture. We are Tampa Bay's research university. We are a great university. University of Tampa is a great university. And we're the state university. We are a great research university. People need to know more about us. We bring our research portfolios is about $450 million a year of active research that goes on affiliated with the university. This translates. What makes us unique is we translate that research to, as much as we can, to commercialization. So one of the metrics for this is patents. And so we have been for a few years now in the top tier of universities that receive patents. And I can tell you this coming year, the new numbers are going to show an increase. So we should be in the top, again, 10 public universities, probably top 12 or 13, all universities worldwide for getting patents. We're the only non-flagship, non-Ivy League type university and stuff that's been on that list. And when you think about it, when you compare us to the University of Florida, a great university, we have half the faculty. So everything we do, if our numbers are high or whatever, we're doing it with half the faculty, okay? So that's really important because we really want to be entrepreneurial and we want our faculty to really think through when they're doing research, how is this going to help the community? How is it going to help society? And then if they can get it, and we now have 250 of our faculty as patent holders, you know, unheard of before in universities, then they will teach the students, they'll get them involved, and they'll start doing things. So we're pretty excited, and we want to be, we want to help drive this local technology economy with you and everyone else.
Dr. White, that's amazing. Dr. White, tell us about yourself.
Well, first of all, it's really exciting to be sitting here with Paul because, as he pointed out, we do have some great universities in this community. And I think that is an important part of building our entrepreneurial community. When I think about building an entrepreneurial community, I think there are three criteria. The first one is entrepreneurs. So we're both engaged in educating and preparing young minds to come out into the community and work in the community and build exciting companies and pursue their dreams. The second thing is opportunities. And anywhere you've got problems, you've got opportunities. And of course, in Tampa Bay, I think we're always pretty good at self-reflection and identifying our own problems, maybe too good. But that's okay because problems are opportunities. So a big part of what we do at the university is really focus on building that entrepreneurial mindset so that our graduates think about problems as opportunities. It's really taking the scientific methodology and applying it to problem solving. That's what entrepreneurship is. And then learning to go out, bring together all the resources you need to build that. So the third component is the entrepreneurial ecosystem, which is the resources. And I think that's what I've seen over my 5 years here. That's what I've seen has one of the greatest transformations in. And you've been a part of that, Mark. I remember coming here, I don't know when you started this, but a few years ago. I came here 5 years ago, and when I came here, we were like 3 people in the corner talking on the microphones, and today I'm sure the cameras have shown this, but I mean, it's a crowd. There's a crowd here. It's a wonderful networking event.
TikTok is responsible for how much bigger this restaurant
Yeah,
is.
that's exactly. That's you. That's you. That's right. We were right in that corner. So, but I mean, there are many things going on in the ecosystem, and thankfully, Bob talks about that in the paper, and Chris does as well in their papers. So, I think we're starting to understand that. So, what we do at the university, we're a private university of about 7,200 students right now. We're growing phenomenally. You've probably seen a lot of new buildings going up on campus. And the newest building that'll be opening about a year from now is going to be our new entrepreneurship center. And I am so excited about that, yes. It's going to be an amazing, what we call a live learning lab. It's going to have our Spartan Accelerator, which is for students, much like what they do at the University of South Florida. But it's also going to have a space for alumni and other entrepreneurs who are working with our students to have a space there. It's going to have a dedicated pitch room, a lot of really exciting things. I can't give away all the details quite yet, but it's really going to be phenomenal live learning space. But I think the one thing I wanted to mention before we move on is that I think that all the universities here play really well together, and I think our entrepreneurial ecosystem is really beginning to collaborate. USF is the research institution. What we want to become and what we are becoming, I think, are the thought leaders on how you teach entrepreneurship. So we're bringing in, this past year, we brought in a group of educators from around the country to really talk about what are we doing in entrepreneurship, how do we teach it, how do we engage the community, how do we build bridges to the community, and how do we instill this entrepreneurial mindset. In January, we're going to have about 500 entrepreneurship educators here in Tampa for a national conference that's all focused on teaching entrepreneurship. So that's what we want to become. There's a lot of research and exciting things coming out of USF. What we want to become is the place where we educate entrepreneurship professors and teachers, and how we really study this whole science of learning and entrepreneurship, so we can build these entrepreneurial mindsets.
Rick, I mean, you've had an amazing year. You brought some of the biggest companies. We talk about our ability to attract companies. You've been out there attracting them. Can you talk about what you're doing, what you're seeing, and the value that both Dr. Sandberg and Dr. White bring to Tampa Bay?
Well, it's an honor to be here with Rebecca and Paul, because what they're doing in their institutions makes our job so much easier to help companies here expand and to recruit new companies into the market. And the Economic Development Corporation's really, the function we serve is really as a matchmaker in between, bringing parties together. So, technology, for example, this is what this is all about this morning, and it's the backbone for everything that we do in this community, from life sciences to defense to financial services to shared services. Technology is underneath and around it all. And so one of the big issues that we're working on with the universities very closely is keeping our workforce cutting edge there, making sure we've got the right kind of training programs in place. And I think we've got a ways to go there, but what we're doing, and I think you said this very well, we're learning how to work as a team, to collaborate with one another, and that's so critical. But we look into the future, emerging industries, which we can play a significant role in. There's a huge change taking place in healthcare.
Right.
There's a huge industry developing around cybersecurity that USF is taking a lead in. You look at the kind of impact of the wars on post-trauma stress and rehab and prosthetics and robotics. Those are areas that are growing fast and where we have an opportunity to play a big role. The reshaping of our defense industry around special operations and that budget being done out of here. We saw this in the last couple of weeks with the Special Operations Convention and
GEOIN. Yeah, it was a great convention.
Huge opportunities for new technologies coming there, and we want to be the home base, for these as they grow, and we see that as being a key role for the EDC to play, is to work with the universities, with the entrepreneurs, with the workforce, to make sure that we land some of these industries and we become known as the center of activity.
Well, let me just, go ahead, Robert.
Rick, I had a question, and it's actually for all three of you. You know, superficially, you know, professorial, academic, university, entrepreneurial teachers, and incubator overseers here. You're in charge of bringing the best possible businesses here from elsewhere, or at least helping to retain the best that are here. You know, superficially they sound kind of separate, but one of the overlaps I hear, and I've heard this for years, is that a lot of the startups, smaller companies in any area, but in this area in particular, look to established companies to help them use our products, at least give them a trial run. You know, let us test some of these clever things we're doing as entrepreneurs with established businesses and get feedback on them. Is there a way, do you sense that there's any momentum in that area of the bigger helping the smaller here?
Well, I think what we're all trying to do is create the forums, and some of them happen very organically, like Buddy Brew here. I mean, this Oxford Exchange become places where people gather and talk and get to know one another. To more formal environments, the Tampa Bay Technology Forum, the kind of reshaping that's taking place there in leadership with Chase and gang. I think that's one of their goals, is to create that kind of environment. So I agree with you, it's a big part of it going forward, and I think we're very strongly headed in that direction. And the kind of entrepreneur centers and incubators, those become places too where these exchanges happen, where these interactions happen. And I know Paul and Rebecca are working actively to build those.
Yeah, actually, Bob, I think that's a great question, because it's one that really needs to be pushed here. We had a meeting not too long ago with Jable Circus, for example. There's a big company. They need to know what we're doing at USF. They need to know what's going on. They were surprised at some of the things we're doing. They have some relationship with us now with engineering school, but there's more things that they could have relationships with. Tech Data, other big companies here that have made it. It's important for them to see what we've got in new technologies so that our technology doesn't get licensed outside the state and that it can stay within the state. That's one of, I think, so important if we're helping our economy. When you start getting all these patents and technologies, they get licensed by a lot of people outside the state. And it helps, but it doesn't, we get a little more money in honor, in royalty and stuff, but it doesn't help the local economy. So that's a great question.
I would just add, I agree with all that, but some of this I think is a process, and part of the process I think is that larger corporations, larger companies are understanding the importance of the entrepreneurial mindset. So students that are being trained with an entrepreneurial mindset are working in larger corporations now, and I think evolution, as an evolutionary thing, companies are moving more towards this understanding, even big companies, that it's a cooperative rather than a competitive environment we live in. So that's not an immediate solution, but it's just something I wanted to throw in on top of, I think, what both of my colleagues mentioned, that I think as we spread this entrepreneurial mindset across campus in all disciplines, it also is spreading in the corporate world, and I think the understanding that we all rise when we work together, if that makes sense.
I was, obviously you can't not be impressed by what you see happening at Stanford University and their ability to, attract bright minds, and then they're working problems that are coming up with concepts for companies. They're starting them while they're in school, and they all want to kind of stay. But what I'm sensing from some of these young people is that really, the quality of life is okay, but now they're thinking about coming to Florida. And then what I'm also hearing from students at USF and UT, they're telling me, I used to hear this in the past, well, we're going to leave. Now I'm hearing they want to stay.
They want to stay, yeah.
They like it here. This is a cool place to live. There's lots to do, and they have now the tools to help them start their own companies. And so, are you sensing that through the work that you're doing, we're going to be able to, maybe we won't, we're not going to try to compete with the Stanfords, but that we can, have our own kind of environment similar to what they're doing in the West Coast?
Absolutely. I'll take it first.
Yeah,
if you want.
great,
That's
yes,
fine.
Please do.
Absolutely. I mean, that's what we're trying to create. And I think, Stanford has a lot going for it. Okay, there's no doubt about it. I think in the paper
We
today.
can beat them in football.
That's
Maybe.
right.
We're going to beat them in football.
I think in the paper in the Times today it said Stanford was the IT university or something. I can't remember. The IT university, whatever. But what it takes is these students to have the tools. You said that. They have to have the tools. They have to have also a curriculum that allows them to be entrepreneurial. Actually, what's interesting is I was talking to our dean, or someone else actually. I was talking to our equivalent over there at entrepreneurship, and what's interesting, we don't have a robust undergraduate program that I'd like to see in entrepreneurship. It's a great master's program, great other programs, but when you think about traditional business schools, when they come out, where are they going to get a job? And so accounting, finance, these things, and so we're very strong in those. But we've got to get it at the other level and get these kids to think entrepreneurship, think globally, international business, and make that a part of the strong curriculum. And I know you're doing that at UT, and we need to do more of that at USF, and we have a great dean that's pushing that. Finally, we need, one of the things, at least when we have a student incubator, and we have 16, as I said, we let 16 companies in. They're all real companies, and these students are running them. We had 40 applications from students with real companies wanting to move in. They work together. They're within our regular incubator so they can meet other business people and stuff. But what the worry I have is then they graduate, and then they leave the student incubator. That's when we want them to stay in Tampa. And I'd love to see them stay in North Tampa, but it doesn't matter to me. Stay here is fine too. And how do we get them involved and make sure they stay? And that's where the networking is really critical, is these companies that get to that point. Whether they move to the Wave, whether they move to other incubators is important.
Dr.
Just
White?
very quickly, a couple of things. I think one of the things that we're trying to do is what you're talking about, and that is create a bridge to the community. But my understanding is that, and I've seen it from students I've talked to personally, and I've read the research, graduates want to stay near their network. So the better job we do while they're in school of creating a network for them, the more likely they're going to stay. That's number one. Number two, we have to create a culture that accepts failure because, and the reason, here's why it works. We hear failure all the time, but you have to think about the fact that entrepreneurship is all about learning. So it never stops, and it's all about problem solving. And we don't typically learn from our successes. We learn from things that don't work. So we have to get comfortable as a community with understanding that the rewards are long-term and that it is a process and it does involve this learning. So if we think about failure as learning and become a learning community, that in my mind, those are the two biggest pieces of criteria that have made it work in the Stanford area that we need more of here, but we're getting there.
You're going to hear a lot more about these two great universities and all the work they're doing. And I also want to say, shout out to HCC and Dr. Atwater and what he's doing. What I love, we talked about beer and how they're the collaborative nature of what's going on in the brewing industry. The universities are working together. We got phenomenal universities who recognize that this is a great place, and if we can just grow the talent and keep them here, we're going to get more talent wanting to come here and wanting to study here and learn here and then work for the companies that Rick Holman brings to Tampa Bay. All right, it's 10 o'clock. We're going to take a coffee break real quick. We're going to cut a ribbon. I'm a politician. I love cutting ribbons, Okay. So we're going to cut a ribbon. We're going to celebrate the reopening of Buddy Brew, and then we're going to come back with some more cool people.
I can't believe this day is actually here. It's been four long years to get to this point, and there's so many people that we want to thank along the way. But really, it boils down to without the support of friends and family, none of this would actually be here. We met a lot of people along the way, especially Mark Sharp, who's always pushed Buddy forward. We had the support of an awesome bank, the U.S. Ameribank, who funded a lot of this growth. Aaron Jimison has been our own banker. And then James Burley, who actually was our project manager in the expansion, and also our representative EWI, who was our general contractor. And without the help of all these people, this wouldn't have happened. So anyway, it's very, very exciting. We're so thankful and happy to have the community in general around us and these special people here cutting the ribbon with us today.
And we also are thankful to have my parents here too. I want to thank them for all of their support and love through this whole venture. We're so proud to be part of this community and thrilled to be able to expand what we're doing here and continue serving great coffee and providing a place where community can happen.
And one last thing that has to be mentioned is Vince and Mary Jo Panino. Best friends. And without them, none of this would have happened. So anyway, thank you. So anyway, all right, we ready?
Yeah.
Let's go at this thing.
Go. Here we go.
Yay! Oh yeah, for a souvenir.
Actually staying pretty close to Are we ready? We're going. We're on. Okay, guys, we are live still. We're at Buddy Brew. We've had some amazing people. We're continuing to talk about technology and coffee, and we got some. We've had some folks that have been here and telling us, in effect, what they're doing to make Tampa Bay really recognized as a community where you can come here and enjoy a great quality of life and be involved in cool companies that are making a big difference in our community. And what I'm really excited about, and I'm going to shift right over to first off, we got our two co-questioners, who Chris Wilkinson, Tampa Bay Business Journal, and we got Robert Trudeau from the Tampa Bay Times. But I want to go and talk to a special guy, Rob Higgins, who's been doing some amazing things, not calling a lot of attention to yourself, but doing some amazing things in the sports world. And you even have your own incubator. Is that true?
It is. It's a
What is
project
this?
that we started almost a year ago now. But as the Tampa Bay Sports Commission, we're pleased and honored to have the privilege of bidding on and attracting sporting events of all shapes and sizes from all over the globe here. We're up to bidding on and hosting about 125 events a year. And certainly there's a lot of events that you would recognize in that mix, whether it be major collegiate championships all the way down to youth travel and soccer events. And we began to look and see where could be the opportunity for us to incubate our own events. We were getting approached with event ideas that either lacked funding or lacked the knowledge to be able to pull them off and bring them together. And we sat here and said, well, that's something that we can help provide. So we went together and pulled together 8 partners from different strategic areas within sports and entertainment and brought them all to the table from both a funding and a partnership standpoint, and created not only a place but a program called the Event Development Institute, where anybody with an event idea can apply, and we'll bring the resources together as we filter through and look through those ideas and see which of them can serve some underserved markets, and we're going through that process now. So it's been a great aspect, new dimension to the company and the community.
Rob, a year in with the EDI, now it's been around for about a year, and you've watched a couple of groups come in and say, hey, we've got this event idea, how can you kind of help us incubate it? Can you give us a little bit of a success story so far in the first year of somebody coming in and you really being able to help them out get up off the ground?
Sure. Yeah, we actually we're looking at it from an endurance space specifically. You look at runs, for example. There's a run for everything now. If you want to run through the mud, if you want to get paint thrown on you, if you want to listen to rock and roll, all those different things, all great concepts, but a lot of them are geared towards adults specifically. So what we saw was the youth market was specifically underserved. And one of the cost barriers in getting in the endurance space is the cost of closing down streets and safety and security and all those things. So a lot of people turn their head towards getting into that space because of the cost barriers with it. But what we did was to reach out to our partners at Busch Gardens and Adventure Island and start a kids triathlon there. What more of a fun place to do a triathlon for kids than swimming through the lazy river, riding and biking around Busch Gardens and Adventure Island property. We've actually done 2 of them now. From our first to our second one, the registration actually increased 30%, and the revenue involved with it doubled. And so when you look at the opportunity to create an event that's not only about competition, but it's about completion, it's about wellness and all those different factors, it's been a great success story for us. You'll see over the next few weeks even more events roll out in some underserved markets that can, again, create a niche for our community that maybe you wouldn't think of.
You know, when I first got involved in politics, I would go down to Sun City and knock on doors to get my petition signed, how I did it, and everybody had a golf course. You know, all the homes were on a golf course. And it seemed like when you thought about Florida and sports, you know, we had our professional sports, but really it was golf. And nothing against golf. Golf's phenomenal. It's a great sport, but it seems like what you're really doing is bringing a whole different type of sport that, I mean, you know, you got the X sports going on and all these cool things going on, but you're really kind of reaching a different audience than Florida's really kind of reached in the past. Is that true?
Absolutely. We want to create really non-traditional niches. While it's going to be a community that's always going after Super Bowls, and we're fortunate to have the College Football National Championship coming here in a few years and all those major sports, but we also want to carve out that non-traditional niche. We want to look for the Red Bull Flutogs of the world. You know, we want to become the place to go for Paralympic sports. We've been fortunate to host the National Junior Disability Championships, the National Veteran Wheelchair Games. You know, those are sports, and those are entities that not only have great economic impact, they have phenomenal social impact. And so, you know, as you touched on, we're trying to uncover what those markets are and where we can really put our community's best foot forward. And I would just mention, too, real quick, we wouldn't be able to do it without Hillsborough County, because Hillsborough County is such a great active partner, not only on the funding side, but on the support side as well. So our hat's off to your group to be able to do that.
Mark, who are our competition? I mean, as far as who we compete with?
Every sport's a little different. I mean, it really is. So I think if you told me, you know, who would it be from a college championship, maybe you look at, you know, the St. Louis's or the Nashvilles or the Indianapolis's of the world. You know, if you looked at it from more of an endurance standpoint, maybe you look at some more of the mid-markets. But really, you name the sport, we'd have a different competitive set, and we would try to align with the event organizers' needs and try to meet and exceed their expectations.
Mark, the thing I love about what Rob's group is doing, and we talk about this in the office a lot of times, is with the International Indian Film Festival and the Republican National Convention, and like there's almost this parallel economy of people bringing in these giant groups and they stay for a long weekend and then they leave town. And there's definitely an economic impact, and there's certainly a big debate about what that economic impact is of a Super Bowl or a kids triathlon or all that kind of stuff. But the subtle impact is that people come from all over the country for the SEC Men's Basketball Championship in 2022 or the Frozen Four and places, things like that. And there's a subtle effect when you bring people in and they kind of like it, and then they may want to come back for vacation, and then they may want to come back and buy a place and come for vacation every year, and then their kid ends up coming here every summer. And then when that kid decides he wants to go to, or she wants to go to school, they may go to school down here, and then they get caught up in Rebecca White's system and they want to stay here, and then they start their company, and that effect might be a generation later. But that's kind of what ends up happening when you bring people into this community and they fall in love with it. And what Rob does is he brings tons and tons and tons of people into this community. Maybe not for more than a long weekend, but he's bringing them into this community so that they can check it out. I mean, I think that's a really cool kind of subtle
underlay. What I like is that, and we're finally starting to get this, you come here for an event, but if you come to a place and there's nothing to do, or you're younger and you're like, well, this place is really not for me, it's an old retiree community, and that's the image and perception, then you come, you leave. But when you come here and you see places like this, you see all the other stuff that's going on downtown, you see all the local, you know, whether we talk about craft beer, whatever it might be, it's like, wow, this is really actually kind of cool. And it's not coordinated or planned, it's just happening. Lots of things happening. Brad Feld talks about this chaos that you got to have to make a really cool startup community. Brad Feld out of Boulder, Colorado. And we're starting to kind of get that creative chaos going on here, which I think is cool.
I think you overlay these events with the technology component. For example, with Frozen 4, which you mentioned, we were the first ever major event to have a social media rewards program with it. We had over 600 people visiting that participated in that social media rewards campaign. Those people each took over 21 actions on social media that were of positive sentiment towards our community. So all of a sudden, those 600 people with their thousands and thousands of friends were talking positively about their trip to Tampa, and we wouldn't be able to do that without technology and without the support of our community.
I'm gonna come to Bruce Earhart, who's one of the most brilliant. I mean, I tell you, this guy. If you want to talk about property values, land, what's going on in the commercial market, this guy knows it. But I want to ask Diane, because Diane, you're with 83 Degrees Media. First off, and I've noticed when 83 started, I wasn't quite sure where it was going to go, but it's really kind of taken a focus on tech. Tell us about yourself and what 83 Degrees is doing.
Well, 83 Degrees Media is an online publication. We're a specialty magazine. We have a niche that we've carved out. We're owned by a larger company called Issue Media Group that's based in Detroit, Michigan. And if you think back to when they started about 9 years ago, it was in an economic climate in Michigan, particularly in Detroit, that was, the narrative was all about loss of the auto industry, white flight to the suburbs. It was negative about murder and mayhem and arson downtown and so forth. So they started a media company. It was 3 young 30-somethings in a startup company who wanted to change the narrative about Detroit because they were working in economic development and saw that there were lots of investments being made on the ground, things like Buddy Brews opening up, art galleries opening up, investments being made in property that weren't being reported by traditional media because the focus was on sort of breaking news of loss of auto industry, loss of jobs, that sort of thing. So they began with that perspective, and it happened that a group from the Tampa Bay region heard about this through the Chamber of Commerce, some business leaders, Deanne Roberts in particular, who had founded a group called Creative Tampa Bay. They heard about this effort in Detroit and Pittsburgh and Cincinnati to change the narrative about those cities, and they invited them to come on into Tampa Bay to begin to change the narrative about us, that we're not just about retirees, tourism, that we're about so much more. What a multiple economy we have, how many different sectors we have that are vibrant, young people who are coming here who are investing in property. Our median age has dropped from something like in the 70s to something like in the 40s. That narrative isn't getting out there. And I think that that was reinforced by Visit Tampa Bay's market studies that were done in the last couple of years. We're kind of a blank slate out there. People don't know what to think about us. Their image of us is either negative or it's blank,
I think of
one or the
Salon
other.
Magazine, Will Doing's A Hot Mess, you know, when they wrote about Tampa. And
Yeah.
and I found myself reading it, getting mad,
Yeah.
thinking that's not true, but then seeing some of the points he made, well, those are true, but we're really not that.
But it's not just that. And what we set out to do is write stories about the things that we are, the real people on the ground, the talented people who are doing cool things, innovations that are happening, the culture that's begun. And just in the last 5 years, we've come so far in terms of building a culture around technology, around arts, around culture. We're also very keen on global diversity as an asset. So much about diversity ends up being news about clashes of different people of different backgrounds, different cultures. We're writing about places, people who are doing successful things, who are coming here from all over the globe. We're successfully attracting the best and the brightest, particularly to our universities. And then we write about the environment in terms of sense of place. You know, urban living has become the thing. It's not a vision anymore. It's the thing. It's what people want. It doesn't matter if you're 20-something or you're 50-something. You want to live in a walkable, bikeable, safe community where there are lots of multiple options on housing, on jobs. That's what we write about.
I was at a presentation not too long ago, small prep school, right there in downtown Tampa, and a representative from Cushman Wakefield was talking about just what you were discussing. You know, where the future is and what they're building towards. Lee Evans from Bristol Myers always says, skate to where not to where the puck is, but to where it's going. Mm-hmm. And it seems like, Bruce, that the puck is going to a more urban, kind of mixed-use type of environment. That's where people want to live. They all, nothing against the suburbs. I grew up in the suburbs, but not everybody wants to live 45 miles out on a narrow road with a lot of congestion. They want to live in a more urban setting. Are you seeing that? Is that what Cushman Wakefield?
Yeah, they're both growing though. I mean, the suburbs are still growing. So
Good.
there's no doubt. But then there's the millennia that I think is pushing the urban. One of the questions, though, is when the urbans get married and have their first child, are they going to stay downtown? Is the downtown going to be able to provide them with the schooling? Is the main thing that they need. And I think that the downtown Tampa will meet that.
But I've heard that a lot. I hear that from some of my 912 friends and others, and they're saying, yeah, they want to live here while they're young, although as my kids get older, I'm already starting to think, well, where do I want to live? I want to live on top of a Starbucks. Here, okay, I want to live near a Buddy Brew or Starbucks. I want to live near a coffee shop. I want to be able to get up and not have to brew my own coffee, walk down, and be around other people who are doing cool things. So the boomers seem to be older.
The empty nesters.
The empty nesters.
They are urban. They're going urban. Yeah, for sure.
I think to Bruce's point, I think we're going to know sometime in the next month or so, I would think, when Cineverse decides where they want to land. If Cineverse decides they want to stay in the suburbs, then you'll know that a big growing corporation has made a decision in that direction. And if they decide they want to build a building downtown, then you'll see that will be a very definite shift in Tampa Bay. If they make that decision to build a building downtown, it will be a big deal for that kind of urban living sort of decision making across companies, I think.
And I think even I'm the parent of two 30-somethings and have two wonderful grandchildren, and I think that their perspective, the 30-somethings, from my experience is, yes, they do want that urban lifestyle even with children, but they want the amenities that you need to access with children. So they want access to things like the new tech center that's going into the public library. They want access to things like arts and culture, the various venues that we have in the area. They definitely want access to good education, whether it's preschools, whether it's K through 12, whether it's universities. They're a generation that's looking to shed one car. They don't want to be that two cars. They want to figure out how to be able to get around a city. So in my own personal case, my daughter and son-in-law are moving right now into Hillsborough, North Carolina. And the reason that they've chosen that is because they have public transportation that is easily accessible, that they can jump on the bus like half a block from their house and be at the public library, be at the farmer's market, be at the healthcare clinic, be at the preschool, eventually the elementary school, the middle school, etc. So it's a different model, it's a different kind of thinking for the next generation coming up with kids.
Hillsborough, North Carolina has better public transportation than we do?
They do. They have a better
I
bus
thought it was
system.
just Detroit.
It's run out of Chapel Hill, and they actually run a free bus service. It's supported by, I believe, property taxes. Not positive exactly how, but I believe property taxes, and it's free to users. So a lot of people use it.
Not to segue too far off, but that's why I'm hoping when the Times writes its piece about what's going on with HART and how we're going to transform HART to a much bigger, more viable entity that can do some of these more creative things, public-private partnerships, they write favorably. So I'm just making my plug in. So when you and you as well, we need good stories about what's going on there. Yeah. Bruce, downtown occupancy. I always hear, they're all empty. No one's even buying or no one's renting. What's going on?
Well, there's been articles about the A buildings, okay? So the A buildings, which are for the single digit, right?
Oh, yeah.
And then overall, we're like 12, 13. They're better downtown than we are West Shore. But in the residential, it's like 98% occupied. So,
And I'm seeing a lot of multi, use facilities. I'm seeing more facilities now, more apartment complexes. It seems like that's going up everywhere. Are we building a lot of apartment complexes? In the past, it seemed like all the apartment complexes became condos. Are we going back to apartment complexes?
You can finance an apartment project. You cannot finance a condo. So we think, just talking to people, that maybe 50-60% the exit strategy is not to sell as apartments to an investor, but to convert to condos. So they're doing a condo light finish within the building itself. The building's locations lend themselves to owner living people. So.
How long do these downtown A buildings need to be basically full before the lease rates start going up? Because I think it's the lease rates that are really
that's
kind of driving the bus.
Same in West Shore, same downtown. You got to be in that low $30 square foot. and it's just not there. But I feel like we're very close, both West Shore and downtown, to an A building being built.
So how does our market compare to our competitors? When you look at the ones I like to compare us to, the Charlottes, the Austins,
they all have their pluses, whatever it is. Austin and Charlotte, education is really big. I think our biggest plus when you compare us to them is that we're very diverse. You look at our institutional economic engines, and they're diverse. I was taking a guy around. We had a meeting with Pasco economic development people. We had a meeting with the county's development people for getting permits and whatnot. And walking downtown back to our office, he's saying how he really likes, the Tampa Bay area because we're so diverse. And so I think that's our one of our biggest pluses is we're not a one something town.
I had a chance to talk with Jeff Vinnick not too long ago, and first off, thank God we got a Jeff Vinnick. I mean, Detroit's got their Dan Gilbert, Tony Hsieh's over in Las Vegas, but we got a guy that is just, he's young, he's committed to the community. He was talking to me. I love to hear someone say, not just the 5-year, 10-year plan, but the 5,100-year plan. That's a man of patience, but he's also thinking about how we're going to transform our downtown Tampa and make it a place where everybody wants to be. Rob, when we talk about all the events and venues that we're bringing downtown, the one question that I had for him and others is, okay, this is fantastic, but I'm a little concerned about how we get people in and out. But is that an issue for you all? We talk about the ability to move people through and get them to the venues while people are also living downtown. And working?
That's obviously a major issue when it comes to events. When event organizers evaluate events, first and foremost, they look at your places to play, your facilities, then the places to stay in the hotels, and then what you'll do from an ancillary event standpoint. So, it's so much more than if you're hosting a basketball tournament, it's so much more than the games. It's all the entertainment and all the events that'll go around it. A week-long celebration of basketball is what they're looking for. And all of those pieces, from the venues to the hotels and those events, are of utmost importance. But if you got no way to connect people to all of them and make sure that it's seamless for everybody, then you throw in the world's best airport in Tampa International and making a runway-to-runway experience completely connected, it's extremely important. And so we try to be as creative as possible as being able to do that. But certainly there's competition out there that are able to show an even more connected approach when it comes to that.
I've been asking Hart. I want to see our transit agency working with you all, so that when people come here for a venue, maybe they get a pass to use transit for free while they're participating in whatever that sporting event is. So they use the transit. It's there. It's part of, in fact, I'm hoping we can do like what Disney does with the wands. So the wand gets you on the bus, the wand gets you, you can buy goods, the wand gets you into your venue. I know that, we can do it because it's being done, but what about the relationship between the events that you bring and the people who come and visit and transit? Do you think if we made it more available or made it free, and I know nothing's free, someone has to pay for it, but maybe it's tied into the event itself, that we could get more people using our transit?
I'd say these events are so competitive. We've been fortunate. Our team has been at it for 10 years now, and when we started, there was 100 sports commissions or sports marketing agencies for communities across the country. 10 years later, there's over 650. Wow. So you need any and every advantage possible in order to be able to be successful when it comes to these events, and certainly, a concept like that would be just another tool in the toolbox of being able to cross the finish line and getting these events home.
Are people talking about it? Is that something that people are talking about?
It's always a question. It's certainly in terms of all the different components. We talked about the college football bid. That request for proposal was 85 pages. Our response was over 7,000 pages. There certainly was a transportation section as part of what their expectations were, and that's one of those things that you always got to do your best in order to be able to answer it. And if our answer can get better, there's no doubt that would help us.
Has Hart worked with you to make the answers to those questions solid?
I think we've always had a good relationship with Hart, but I think it's one of those things. There's no doubt that you could enhance that and make those answers
Let me
better.
tell
And
you.
a concept like that would be fantastic.
I want to be. I was. Some of the board members a little concerned. I was a little too critical of HART. I'm on the HART board. I love transit, and oftentimes I'll say I'm like with my kids. I love my kids, but I'm a critic. At times I want them to do more. I look at HART, and I was never satisfied with the attitude that HART had towards these type of events. The attitude is always the past was. We're here to provide a service to those who have no other alternative but to use public transit. They never saw themselves as really being in the game of enhancing these type of events, and now they are. That's why we are getting new leadership. Oh yeah, because we're getting new leadership. Okay. And we're going to continue to get new leadership until the leadership does what it needs to do. Hopefully this team we got in place will do the job. But if they don't, and they all know it, everybody knows it. When you serve in government, you got to understand, you're here to not just, get your 30 years and get to go retire. You're here because you're providing a service for the community, and you ought to be thinking just like a company, innovative and creatively. When I first got here, the attitude was, why? We got rules and processes, and we're here just to kind of run the machinery. That doesn't work anymore. If you're running the machinery in a business, you're going to get your clock clean by some company that's going to come in and take you out. But in government, it was like, well, you know what? There's no competition. My attitude was, we need that. I'm going to, press you to change, and if you don't change, we get nothing personal. We're going to get somebody new. I think Catherine Egan, who's the interim at HART, she's got it. She wants to do it, and we're going to give her every tool she can so that Rob and others are happy and satisfied.
Bruce, is a more forward-thinking HART something that's going to help your industry push forward as well?
In corporate site selection,
yeah,
it's a check mark.
Is that questions people
And
are
then
asking?
It's always on the list for
I
everybody.
need to write about that.
Yeah.
How do you answer that question?
No question.
Do they get a
Costs
check or do
lot
they
of
not
money.
get a check?
It costs. We don't get the check mark for transportation. Public transportation and the trains. We just don't have it, but I think we will.
We're going to get the check mark. I mean, that's that. I look at this honestly like it's a battle. I mean, I hate to use the comparison because folks always talk about war and fighting, and there's no comparison at all. But at the same time, we ought to be looking at it like we're giving it our all. And in the past, it was just kind of perfunctory. It was there. The attitude was like, come see, come saw. If they use it, fine. If they don't, no big deal, because we got our base using transit, and that just doesn't cut it anymore. We're going to make sure that we don't just check that daggone box, but you know what? But that box, stands out, and people go, wow. You know what? Look at what they're doing in Tampa Bay. I want to have my event there because you know what? When we get there, we can move around, and it's easy to get in and out. You don't have to go rent a car, and that's why you're going to see a lot of boxes being checked that maybe weren't checked in the past. I hate to do this, guys, but we got to move to the next segment. This is fantastic. Hey, if you really want to see something cool and innovative, you got to go check out his Rob Higgins incubator. I mean, that thing is sweet.
You can find out more information about it at growyourevent.com, and then certainly our website's tampabaysports.org.
And I got to give a big shout out to Commissioner Ken Hagan, who I knew had a lot to do with helping you and supporting that. Ken has been on the board for over 10 years. He really is committed to not just sports, but making our community better. He's got young kids, and I know he worked with you on that project as well. And I want to thank Ken Hagan for helping you. And
he's been phenomenal, as has the whole board. So we certainly appreciate Ken and every one of the commissioners' efforts as well as the staff.
Thank you, buddy. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Fantastic. Stephanie, while we're live, we have Stephanie Ashley, who is the brains and brawn behind the Economic Development Innovation Initiative. We have Joy Randall, who you'll be talking to in a few seconds, who actually came up with the idea, because I had an idea and it was a bad one. She was politely trying to say it's not a good idea. Joy helped to redirect it, but then we had a staff that was actually able to catch this good idea and turn it into something really cool, and that's Stephanie Ashley. Stephanie, why don't you just cut briefly while we're all shifting here, tell us who you are and a little bit about EDI2.
Sure. So EDI2 is a fantastic, very innovative program that the county is doing. It's like none other that's happening not only in the state of Florida but across the country. We're so excited to be supporting our innovation, technology, entrepreneurship ecosystem. It is not something where we're trying to drive the bus. We're just trying to support what's already happening in our community. So we're so
excited that things are rolling. It has been going on now for almost a year. As of June 5th, it will be a year, and we look forward to other participants and community members to participate in events and programs that the program can support.
We have a $2 million budget for EDI2. We probably have handed out in awards.
Actually, it's we're very proud of our program as we're a model for transparency. So there have been almost $600,000 that have been approved by our advisory committee. However, only about $130,000 have gone out the door, because we do require that anything that comes to receive your funds, you must submit your performance report, and we review that very carefully, and we're very proud about that model. So,
I was even reading where Brad Feld was talking about how Boulder was trying to come up with something like this, and it was after we'd already done it, which I thought was kind of cool. And I also heard through the grapevine that when Startup Bus went to Austin for the South by Southwest, Guy Kawasaki,
He did.
I don't know who Guy is, you follow him? That guy tweets like 24/7. If you follow Guy, 3 o'clock in the morning, it's oftentimes odd and eclectic, like the 3 fruits you don't want to eat before breakfast or something like that. It's weird stuff. But Guy said that we were the only community in the nation that had funded their Startup Bus.
it was very exciting. When he was on stage, we actually have the YouTube that we can send out, but he was on stage and said, "Who is Hillsborough County?" And people shouted from the crowd, "It's Tampa." And he said, "All right, Silicon Valley, you look at this. Their government is supporting this startup bus. No other government in the country is." Like, that's just, that's a fantastic
That brings
tout. We're
tears
very
to my
proud of
eyes.
that. We're very proud of that.
I think that is so absolutely cool. And actually, that's a great segue when someone says, who is Hillsborough County? We have Hillsborough County here. We have the actual administrator, the guy that, that turns all the levers and cranks and makes it move. And what I think is so cool is we've gone from a county that really was kind of satisfied with the old model of growth. When I got here in 2004, the attitude was, we're going to focus on what makes us money. What makes us money is building subdivisions, and that's fabulous. That's what you build. And then if we really want to get out there, we'll build some malls. And what we've seen is a transition, not that we're saying that's not important, because we want people to come here, live here, and feel comfortable, but what we've seen is a new strategic vision, and that's from our county administrator. So I just want to kind of zero right in right now on the man who really has helped make a dramatic turn in the way our government operates. And he's the guy, when Guy Kawasaki says, who is Hillsborough County? I think it's Mike Merrill. No. Mike, tell us a little bit about, you're the administrator, but the strategic vision of this county and how it has kind of shifted to, one that really is trying to reflective of what we got here and attracting the tech community.
Well, I mean, the most important thing is customer service, which was really sorely lacking in the county. And customer service, not just in terms of delivering picking up garbage on time, not delivering garbage, that goes the other way, but really what we're talking about here, customer service to the innovation part of our community, to the tech part of the community, and really making the turn towards making this a community that people want to be in, people want to come to. I mean, creating a place. And so, all the work that we're doing, that Ron, Barton, and Lindsay and the whole team is doing is really in the forefront. Now we have to really address transportation needs, because all of that does fit together in terms of creating a place.
I don't want to interrupt, but I will. When Joy Redner was sitting where Joy Randall was sitting, Joy Redner from Cigar City, when asked by Mr. Trudeau, what's missing in this community, quite eloquently went into the lack of transit and the value and the importance of transit. And I know that you're helping to spearhead the policy leadership group's efforts to bring transit to Tampa Bay, and you've also been behind what I think is really truly a watershed moment, which is the transformation of HART into an entity which can bring about a significant number of new projects, which would be very, I think, attractive to the millennial generation.
Well, it really comes back to customer service. I mean, we have folks who currently use our bus system. They need to have a better bus system. But what you really need is to get people like me out of my car. So when I think about it in terms of what do I need? I need consistency, I need reliability, and I mean, I'm someone who came from an experience working in Europe of having great transit, so I kind of have that model in my head. But it's got to be seamless, first mile, last mile, everything in between. That's why you need an agency that's accountable, that has the funding, that can deliver it. You can't have 5 different bureaucracies working by committee, and that's why you take an agency like HART that has all the pieces, restructure it, make it robust, and now you can get things done. It's the way TIA got done. The vision 30 years ago or so to establish TIA is what makes it a great international airport today. Port Authority, same thing. There's a reason why those businesses are structured the way they are. So I think, in a nutshell, that's what it's all about.
Well, I want to thank Mike, because when I first came here, we were talking about things like the collaborative between Moffitt Cancer and Merck and the creation of M2Gen, which was no easy project. And there was a lot of folks who were concerned that we'd never invested that much money. And I remember the very first meeting, because at that time we were really concerned even about the future of Moffitt. I mean, Moffitt was looking for more space and what they were going to do. And in a meeting, worrying about that, but also seeing this tremendous opportunity and having this man who was our bond handling our bonds and our finances walk up to me after a meeting and say, "Don't worry, we're going to get you there." And that's when I what I love about our county administrator is that, look, there's no easy way to get in government from point A to point B. You got to follow a lot of rules and procedures, which are there for a good reason. But oftentimes you don't have people who say, "You know what, we're going to get you there." It's like, well, we might or we might not. I'm just going to basically move the ball. Mike is always thinking about not just moving the ball, but getting us to a point. And I really want to thank you for everything that you've done in our community.
It's exciting. We got a great board and great leaders, and I mean, not just on the board, but in the entire community. And government does have a role in helping businesses get a start. I mean, M2Gen was a startup. I mean, it just happened that there were 2 big giants behind it, but I mean, they're still trying to figure it out.
Exactly.
So I mean, it's not like, that was, people think, was the $28 million worth spending? Hell yeah. I mean, in terms of the spin-offs, in terms of what that's going to bring, in terms of intellectual capital that's going to feed other businesses, I mean, that's where government has a role, when no one else would step in. And it's where we have our strength in healthcare, medical technology. I mean, that's where our role is.
I know that we've got Stuart Rogel, who is the CEO of a Tampa Partnership, and Stuart's been involved in a lot of these projects. I mean, we talk about whether it's the M2Gen project and out there advocating strongly for it. You look at Draper Lab and what they've been able to do, bringing SRI both to St. Pete and also to Tampa. I mean, the list goes on and on. And again, trying to shift the focus of our community from the more traditional, back office. Not that that's not important, because it's incredibly important. You want that industry here, but the focus being more on the high-wage, high-tech companies. Stuart, can you kind of tell us a little bit about yourself and what you see and the success that you've enjoyed here?
Sure. Well, I think first of all, I think one thing that's important to know is that Tampa and Hillsborough County exists in a region that is very dynamic. It has over 4 million people. And that's important to know, that we're in a big marketplace and that we're connected to the world through that marketplace. And just as there's this fantastic conversation going on right here today, those conversations are going on all around the region about how do we grow technology. And that's very, very exciting. In that market, we found that about 25% of the jobs that are existing today are what we would call technology-based jobs. We don't know that. We don't think about that. We think we're working on the margins, but we're not. We're really working with a major core of jobs in places like medicine and health and biomedical. Mike just talked about the M2Gen investment. Well, Bristol-Myers Squibb came to this market because they saw the investments that were being made. So we see medicine, health, business financial services, marine environmental activities, and manufacturing as places that are creating significant amounts of jobs, where it is not just the big companies. Yes, there are brand name companies in that mix, but there's smaller companies that are taking advantage of that and working with those companies, working with those industries to say, how do we provide goods and services? How do we create the next best way to do business with those industries? So, this is a very vibrant market. We don't tell our story well enough in this market to talk about those businesses and those industries that are here. We have to continue to tell that story, and we have to continue to help build and support those companies. And it's both the public sector and the private sector and the civic community working together to build the kind of environment that's necessary to help grow those kinds of jobs and create that opportunity.
I know that the partnership has got a responsibility for 7 counties?
8 counties.
So you got 8 polkas. Okay, we have
Yep.
8 counties. But we're also, and I know Randy Baird of the High Tech Corridor has been doing a lot of work trying to create this giant corridor, and
Right.
and our work in collaboration with Orlando is incredibly important.
Right.
Do you see that only continuing to grow?
Oh yeah, I absolutely do. I mean, first of all you have to do is get on the interstate and drive between here and Tampa and Orlando, and you know that it's growing. So do we want that? Do we want to shape that? Do we want to influence that? If we look at Orlando and we combine Orlando with Tampa Bay, we've got about 7 or 8 million people, depending on how you measure it. We've got 50% of the legislative delegation. We're a super region, and we can play in a regional, at a global level. We don't necessarily compete with Orlando. We complement each other.
Right.
And I just literally got back from China. And very eye-opening experience there. But one of the things that I did is people said, "Where are you from?" In the United States. I'm from Florida. People go, "Oh, okay, Florida." I said, "What do you know about Florida?" They know about Disney. I said, "Good, well, come join us. We're only an hour away." "Only an hour away?" "Yeah, I'll come." So we need to build on that. We need to leverage that, and the super region allows us to do that. But we also need to be, we need to make sure that we're taking care of our own business. Talking about transportation for a second. Sunrail has opened up in Orlando. Hallelujah. We have and will and have done and supported that. And you personally, Mark, have supported the Tampa Bay Partnership, Hillsborough County. Now we need to be able to make sure that we're taking care of our business here and that we do have a transit system that is customer friendly. We build that system. And then we'll take those 2 opportunities to begin to connect Tampa Bay and Orlando together. There's lots of things going on. There's the All Aboard Florida project that's occurring. That project will occur if we in Tampa Bay really focus on building our local and regional transit system out. And just again, coming back from China, I saw the competition alive and well in China. And I can see what we can do, and I am so glad to be back here.
Yeah.
So glad to be in a place like Tampa Bay after being in China and seeing the good, the bad, the ugly. But the fact of the matter is that we're in a global stage. We're connected. I was talking to my wife on FaceTime, talking to my office on FaceTime. So we have to figure out how we're gonna connect and how we're going to compete globally, and it's by creating the kind of environment, the kind of community that people want to live in, want to work in, and attracts those and grows those kinds of businesses that we're talking about.
I mean, here's
Beijing
here's motivation. Jiangsu province in China 2 years ago was awarded the best BRT system in the world.
Right.
If they can do it in Jiangsu province, China, we can do it here. It is really a cool system.
Yeah, well, I mean, I was just saying, my sister's in Beijing now, and the first thing she talked about was the air quality.
It's terrible.
I mean, and that's the thing. I mean, we're figuring out a way we can grow our economy without,
Correct.
polluting the air. But there's a lot to learn as well. Joy Randall, in fact, talking about a lot to learn. I was asked when I first met Joy. I was asked to speak at a conference at the University of South Florida. I think it was a bar camp event. I brought my best Cigar City shirt because I thought it had something to do with alcohol, but it had nothing to do with alcohol. It had to do with coding, and it had to do with really, really smart people. So I did have a copy of Brad Feld's startup communities. I'd read it carefully the night before because they told me they're going to talk about this. So I'm trying to talk about tech and how we're going to foster a tech economy and such, and everyone's nodding, and the only person not nodding is this person in the back of the room is shaking her head, and that was Joy Randall. And I gravitate towards people like that because that's where I learn. When people are nodding along, I'm like, But when she was like, no, she's like, you don't understand. And so I went to her, and from that point forward, it's been a great learning experience because she's talked about the startup community. She's global. I mean, you talk about a person who's everywhere. When I talk to Joy, I have to get my little time zone thing out to see where she is. Which if she's not here, she's in Boston. She's out in the West Coast and Silicon Valley. She also hosts Startup Grind, which is a monthly event that's here. It's over at the Oxford Exchange. We bring some of the most creative and incredible entrepreneurs and tech people in the world. Startup Grind, and that's Joy Randall. So Joy, I'm not going to ask you to tell us what we're doing wrong because that'll be another hour. But tell us what do you see happening in our entrepreneur community here in Tampa Bay and why you think it's special and why you're here.
Well, I think it is. I've lived here. I moved here from Atlanta in 2000. I've lived all over. So I've lived in the U.S. I've done work around the world. It's funny you talk about Jeanju. We just opened a startup grind chapter there 6 months ago. So we now have 100 cities around the world. We'll have 150 by June of next year, and so we're doing some things to kind of try to. So the whole premise behind that is allowing people in different communities that aren't in Silicon Valley to actually have the experience of entrepreneurs around the world. So we created this global network where you can see what's going on anywhere around the world. One of the big things, and one of the reasons I wanted to do it here, and I now have a chapter, we've got one set up in Tallahassee, one in Jacksonville, one in Miami, and Orlando is in process right now. So the entire state of Florida will have chapters doing this every month. But the reason for doing it is, I think, to Stuart's point when he said, hey, we don't do a very good job of showing what we have, and we don't. We do a terrible job of that, right? So I said, this is a great way to get entrepreneurs education. So it's a fireside style chat sort of scenario where we ask some questions, I interview the people, and then there's an open Q&A. So anybody who comes to the event can ask whatever question they want, right? And they get a chance to learn from entrepreneurs who've made millions or billions in some cases of dollars, right? The other thing it does is we broadcast those. So one of the things we do is we take that content after we're done and we broadcast it out to chapters all around the world. So people actually get to see, oh my God, there are actually successful entrepreneurs in Tampa. How crazy is that, right? So we have an opportunity to do that. My personal opinion is, based on what I've seen happen here since I moved here in 2000, there's been a lot of positive things. It's a slow process. Everybody wants to make it happen overnight. It doesn't. If you look at Silicon Valley starting in the 50s, right? They've got a little bit of time ahead of us in there. And I think we also want to strive to do things that are popular, like everybody wants to do the coolest new iPhone app. And yet, the companies that make billions of dollars are not those companies. And I think if we focus more on creating real companies, then we build those companies, and those people who do that come back and create more companies. Great example of that here, there are guys like Ian Ippolito, like Kurt Long, right? Kurt's on company number 3. I've known Kurt for almost 20 years. And, Kurt is an entrepreneur. He's never going to be the guy who's going to go be a venture capitalist or do the other thing, right? He's like, I'm going to go build another company. And I think if we focus more on that and on, building those companies and helping those companies grow, that's what you need to do, because the more successful they are, the more successful the whole community will be.
Kurt's with Fair Warning over in Feather Sound. Yep. And he also has this incredible entrepreneur program where he basically helps young students.
Awesome.
And it's intense. It's not like a show flash 1 hour. It's a very intense program with some incredible kids.
Yep.
Joe, I had a question.
Sure.
Because a lot of the emphasis today has been on universities that are starting to create pipelines of young people into the entrepreneurial spirit of things. Some of them hopefully will go the startup route, but these are not experienced people.
Sure.
One of the things you seem to be focusing on is the quality of a startup, which tends to suggest someone who's a serial entrepreneur and is on their 2nd, 3rd, 4th, or whatever. They've gone through the agony of learning how to do it and are better at it now, like Kurt Long. How do we nurture them who are perhaps more ornery and less directable?
I like ornery, actually.
Yeah.
So on my personal companies, I'm on number 9. I'm an investor, an angel investor in quite a few companies. I've done turnarounds. I've gone in and helped people kind of grow them. I like that. I think the best startup teams are diverse. So they're diverse in ethnicity, they're diverse in sex, right? So men and women, and they're diverse in age. So you don't want everybody who's all the same. That's problematic. I think Kurt's a good example of that. When Kurt first started out with Fair Warning, with this company, right? I helped him hire one of my companies got acquired by CA, right? CA has a huge office over off of MLK, right? And I helped him find his first inside sales guy, right? I went and helped him find another guy for business development. I helped him find another developer. These guys were all out of different companies, and it shows how the whole ecosystem is supposed to work, right? We plucked guys out of other companies here. I'm helping him find another employee right now, actually. We talked yesterday, who's going to be in a product role there.
And Kurt and I are buddies, but I think you'll see that. My company, Velocitude, that we sold to Akamai, the last one I sold, we had myself, an Indian gentleman who's old enough to be my dad, a Brit who had migrated to the country, a definitely white bread boy from Michigan, who was significantly younger. Our CTO was not even 30, okay, who came up with this idea, and then we had a Cuban guy. And these were the 5 people who made up the core team of that. And then if you look beyond that, we had all different types of people. And I think diversity is good. I want to see the students coming out of there. They need practical experience coming out of there. So things like not just internship programs. I like the apprentice program that 8th Light ran here. I think that's actually better than an internship because I'm taking someone in and I've given them a mentor for the duration, right, to bring them up. But doing things like that, you want to see that. There's some brilliant students. I can tell you, having been a judge at SEEK, having worked with the guys at UT, having worked with USF here, USF in St. Pete, there's some brilliant students coming out of here.
Okay, Mike's putting together the county is a new entrepreneurship center where and to the credit I think of the county and to Ron Barton, Economic Development, Lindsay Kimball and Stephanie Ashley and others, they're moving cautiously. Where I want to be ready to go, a year back and push it out fast. They're looking at relocating the facility, the Small Business Development Center, from 56th Street, the old industrial park, to a more urban setting in Ybor City. So and we're talking about creating an environment where we can help provide, assistance, but it seems like, as you said, this person, I know that guy, I know what they need, so you can tie it all together. If we were going to try to help put something like that together, could we put something like that together into this facility? Could we create a facility where people actually really want to go and they would go there and be able to find that type of assistance?
Who are you
Both
asking
of
that
you.
question?
I'm going to ask
who are you asking that question? Oh my.
If you're going to give Mike a piece of advice, we can, on the air, publicize, what would you tell him to do to make this really successful?
Make it open.
Mm-hmm.
The problem we have here too is we always want to have somebody corral all of the Indians. It doesn't work that way. In any successful community, it doesn't work that way. So make it open, right? Make it open where everyone can come in. People are welcome. That sort of thing. I think above all else, you want to have that. You want to have diversity in what's there. It's that diversity in that chaos that actually create innovation.
It's just funny. It's like I think of a restaurant. I think of places you go. You can try so hard to make it a place where you want to come inside, and you can walk inside and go, this just isn't for me. Right. There are some places that are almost hole in the walls, and everybody wants to be in there. And well, gosh, if I go there, I'm probably going to see somebody I want to see. So you die to get into that place. Mm-hmm. And I'm hoping that when we build this entrepreneurship center, that's what we build, something that, irrespective of really where it is, even though it would be nice to have it in a cool spot, it's a place where everybody really wants to be because there's value when they walk in the door. I feel that way when I go to Oxford Exchange. Mike, go ahead.
Well, I mean, it's a nice marriage because, you need the openness, you need the freedom and flexibility, but then you need someone who can look at it and say, they're ready to be plucked and moved over here and start a little bit more discipline, a little bit more looking towards a product development, because in the end, that's what everybody wants. But you got to know the right time. You can't, you got to let it stew. It's like making a meal. You got to let it cook for a while. It's ready when it's ready. But when it's ready, those people who are ready to move forward, that's when they need money, they need help, they need a little bit of direction, a little bit of push. And
help is okay. I would argue, I'm kind of tired of hearing about money.
Me too.
I'm serious.
Just
I'm
put the budget together.
So the problem is, if you have a real product and you can prove that customers will buy your product, you can get money. So there's certainly money to be had, and there's tons of angels investing. I can tell you, between me and 3 other people I know, we have 67 investments right now in this community. So don't tell me you can't get money if you actually have something that's real. So I think that having someone to guide them, and the mentorship is what is something that's important. The challenge is understanding what that is. And so one of the problems we have here too is we don't have enough people that actually do mentoring, that actually give back, that have active Rolodexes, that are actively building businesses. Right. And so the difference between, if you looked at, say, Boulder, or you looked at Silicon Valley, the majority of the people who are mentoring, who are giving back and who are doing that, are active entrepreneurs themselves.
they're building their own businesses right now. They've done it multiple times. We have a lack of that in our community.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good point. 35 years ago, when I was a young banker and I was doing research and development financing in Milwaukee, we had two guys from Boston, from MIT, Bernie Caputo, I can't remember the other guy's name, and they had this idea about ground-penetrating radar. They were brilliant. They couldn't put a business plan together if their life depended on it, and they didn't know how to get the money. We said, we'll raise the limited partnership money for you, but here's the conditions. Take all that brilliance, take all that juice, put it through this sieve, and we'll help you get to a product. A month ago, I was listening to a couple of my public works engineers talking about the fact they were going to use ground-penetrating LiDAR technology to go out and look at a site. And I said, I'm the one who financed that 35 years ago, Bernie Caputo from MIT.
Right.
That was the greatest feeling to know that, over that period of time, you helped someone do something that was actually for the sinkhole disaster. That's what it was. To save a life. I mean, it was just truly, but you need someone to take those people when they're ready and mentor them.
You do.
And help them find the money and help them be successful. And that's what we can do. We can do that in the Collaboration Center.
I'll tell you, I think an interesting thing that would be great to see out of what you're trying to do there is we do a very poor job. We have, USF has that. We've got all these patents, right? A big difference in, say, like USF and MIT is how the TLO works in those two organizations. So being able to help the technology licensing office, right? Technology licensing office, right? So if we could do something to help put some of that research actually to work into big businesses, and there could be some collaboration there, that would be a huge thing for the community.
There's unmined value there that
absolutely
is just going to waste.
Well, I think somebody's missing in this conversation. Then is that's one of the reasons why we invested in Draper and SRI is to take some of that technology and bring it out and help us connect in this community, because that's what they do really well. When you talk about MIT, Draper actually did that and spun off of MIT. They were the licensing organization for MIT. And so we've got that capability. How do we build that? And I think, Joy, your point is also we need more mentors, right? We need more of those serial entrepreneurs. I think we got to close all the golf courses down, make it rain a little bit more, and get them out in this community, find out who they are and get them back engaged and involved, because they've all done it for 10, 15, 20, 30 years, right? And they're ready for another encore career. So how do we get them plugged into helping the community?
When I was with Chase Stockton yesterday at the retreat, and we've talked about this over the last couple of months, the importance of getting those existing companies that are right now established and doing very well, they're entrenched in tech, they're focused on their own world, getting them more engaged, whether it's in helping to fund or finance places where folks can come in and try out ideas, and or could the mentors come from those groups?
Right.
I mean, should we be saying to them, help us?
Unlikely.
Because
it's not entrepreneurial, so that's the problem, right? So I'm all for having those guys there, and they certainly could acquire technology. They could be people who could set forth and say, these are the kind of technologies we want to buy, right? So that's a great way to kind of bridge the gap, saying, this is what our 10-year plan is. We want to look at this is what we're going to do, right? So then if you look at research over here, having people create companies to produce the products these guys want, now you've actually helped the ecosystem there. Mentorship coming out of large corporations, the mindset is completely different.
Right.
Well, here's our goal, and this is what we're going to close where we started, which was, I became a religious reader, not only of the Bible, but of Bruce, but of the Tampa Bay Partnership's annual kind of analysis in which you compared us to the other six. It was a really good document, and it was honest. It didn't always say we were number one.
Right.
I mean, oftentimes we were 5 and 6, and that being the worst. And so I really appreciated what you were doing, Stuart, because it was like, it was an honest assessment of where we were, but the goal was always to get to number one. And I know I've had some folks say I spent too much time looking at those numbers, not just those numbers, but other rankings. But I feel like once we can break into that top 10 and get there and hang there, we're going to stay there. So let's just kind of close with what can we do? Let's just go around the table and be done. We'll start with you, Stuart. Is there anything you can think of that we could do to make Tampa Bay a top 10 community, a consistent, perennial top 10 community in the tech industry?
Yeah, you helped spark what that scorecard told me time and time again, whether we were 1 or whether we were 6.
Scorecard, yeah.
And it really is about education, it's about our university systems, and it's about creating that sort of sense of entrepreneurship. If we do those 2 things, that'll drive the other things, which are income, quality of life, the kinds of jobs we want. So I think, just focusing, staying on track. This is a young economy. It's a young economy. Florida's a young economy. Tampa Bay's a young economy. We just got to keep working on those things that are most important. And to me, it's education, and it's creating this kind of environment that focuses on what we've got here. One other thing I'll say about entrepreneurship, we've always been an entrepreneurial community. I mean, from the beginning of the history of this community. Because if somebody comes down, you've got to provide something for them, whether it's a glass of orange juice or it's a boat ride in the swamps. You've got to provide something for the tourists. So we've been entrepreneurs. It's how do you shift to the new economy? How do you take advantage of that culture of entrepreneurship that's been here in our community forever?
Excellent, Mike.
Telling our story over and over effectively to anybody who will listen. We don't do that well enough.
I think that's definitely true. I think that the other thing we could look at, if we're looking to bring people here, right? So we talk a lot about education. There's an interesting statistic that came out yesterday. So there are $36 billion corporations that have been created in the last decade. 32 of those are in California. This was sparked by the debate on the non-competes, right? And so Massachusetts is actually, they're voting on this, right, on how they're going to deal with that going forward. And I think the challenge is, right, they're losing students, right? The big thing is they're losing people moving to Texas and moving to California and those other areas. Maybe part of the question we should look at is if people are going somewhere, if we change our economics and we change our value system here a little bit, then maybe you get some of those people to come here versus just going there, right? So they have a choice. So you don't have to just graduate your students here. I mean, I do work at MIT and other things. So the students can come from MIT and come here as well.
Robert? Very briefly, since I'm in the communications business, I guess I'll give ourselves a knock in the head, because Chris and I and others have to be able to tell more of what's happening. And there has to be more of a sharing somehow of the information of what's going on. We're a small group here, and there's 50 other people having a conversation like this right here in the Tampa Bay area right now. What you're doing, what you're saying is not widely known. What the county's up to is not widely known, and it's not happening in a real time sense. So if we all kind of pull together in some manner without becoming monolithic, I think it'll really help.
My answer to the question, and the initial question I think was kind of what do we do to get there and stay there? And when I first moved here, I came to learn that Wikipedia had started here before it moved to California. And regardless of the circumstances of what happened that made them want to move, my answer to that question is be ready when we get lucky. Because it'll happen again. Somebody will do something amazing here, and it's going to grow exponentially, and our community needs to be ready to feed them employees, to feed them talent, and to feed them support, so that as it grows, it becomes this thing where people are like, look at what's happening over there. Because we're going to get lucky again like that, and we need to be ready to support it when it happens.
When you talked about investing in education, and I've got a student here who's actually taught him at the Honors College at USF, and they put together an app called YoGov. We were talking about trying to create an app that would make people more interested in kind of getting involved in education. And they put together a really cool app and started working on it, and then in fact started coming to my other class because he was trying to poach some of my students who are really good at coding to get them, it's not even a coding class. It became a coding class. I actually had one student who would come in and basically take over half the class teaching us how to code. It was pretty cool. The guy was brilliant, but he loved to do it. I'm like, great, code away, man. Maybe we can get that. I want to get a percentage of that next 19 billion. But I was so impressed with what the students were doing, and I was so impressed with the fact that these guys are now talking about staying here, making this community great, And so I just wanted to introduce you and let you just say just a few words. Introduce yourself, let them know who you are, and maybe one of them will hire you. Or Joey, she might give you some money, because she's the capital one. Hey, listen, don't laugh, because I was at a UT event, and this one student was sitting there talking about this concept he had. It was a dome, a dome they were going to build, they were going to take it to Haiti and grow food and such. He's like, but I don't know, it was like $60,000, something like that. I just need $60,000. There's Joy over there going, I can help you. And I think before the program we were done, he had his money, or at least the handshake promise on the money, and he went and traveled all over the world to Singapore to show off this concept. Here's what's happening. You talk about letting people know. This is a small, tiny speck of what we want more of. Talking about how great this community is, letting you know when you're sitting in Seattle watching this and it's drizzly and rainy and nasty, it's sunny over here. And you can come over here, it's kind of cool and sunny. But introduce yourself real quick and tell them, just what you're doing.
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is William. I'm a student at University of South Florida in the chemical engineering program, actually. So it has little, if not nothing, to do with coding, but I took up a coding project. So we worked on this thing called YoGov, and the whole idea is a little bit more involvement, specifically in local politics. It's easy to go online and get what's happening on the federal and state level, but people are most directly impacted by your local politics. It's good to keep up with the Ukrainian crisis, for example, but if your garbage doesn't get picked up next weekend, as Commissioner Sharp pointed out in one of our classes, people are going to be calling you up pretty quickly. And then they're frustrated and they don't know why. And we want them to know why, at the very least. So the idea was to deliver concise and unbiased in whatever way possible summaries of current events that are happening specifically in your area. So if you live in, downtown Tampa, for example, it would know your zip code or however, and deliver local information to you that's going to hopefully get you a little bit more aware of what's happening around you. And the whole idea is to improve a little bit of voter turnout, specifically in the local elections, where I can speak on behalf of most people my age. We have no clue when they are, let alone where they are or who's involved. So, and our whole premise is we want to fix that. We want more people to know who's running, what they stand for, what they're going to do. And I hear all of you talking about we want more tech, we want more millennials, I believe, in and around the Tampa area. And I believe getting them involved in the process of attracting them here is crucial to making it happen.
Well, we're going to close with the future. That's the future. And what's so cool is that when I walk into a class now, and it's amazing. I mean, I've been in education for 2 decades, and what I see now is an entrepreneurial mindset that I've never seen before. Maybe it's because they're hearing more about these guys that are doing cool things. But what we need to tell is that it's happening here. We got the support base around us that's trying to learn, trying to adjust, and trying to make it so that you and others want to stay and build that next cool company and raise a family. So, man, hey, William, good luck, buddy. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. We did it, and we're almost on time. 2 hours and 20 minutes. Hey, sharp time, really, yeah. That's true. All right, it's a wrap. We'll see you next Friday at Buddy Brew. Thank you, my friends. It's cool.